All right, I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it at the outset. I have a few things to say, actually. First, I'm not a professional tree guy. I'm not a logger. I was never trained as such. I'm not even trying to pretend to be one. Back to tree work. I am, however, trying to learn from those guys and girls that post stuff on YouTube, and I have learned a lot, and I'm trying to learn out loud, as it were, because I'm sharing it with some of you guys. Some people come across these videos, whether they be shorts or these longer versions, and they're either misinformed, they think it's a flex, or they're just assholes. A lot of things on that topic. First and foremost, I'm practicing here. I don't get to fell but maybe a dozen trees a year, sometimes less than that. I'm just a firewood guy, landowner. I have enough property that some of it looks like this on a tree line. Some of it's my dad's property, some of it's my cousin's property, some of it's in the woods. And you can see that there's a variety of different kinds of snags here. I am more than interested in having a conversation in the doobly-doo about what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. The safety stuff, if it's I should be wearing more equipment, you can put that in the doobly-doo below, guys, but you all have to do what you think makes sense for you. Sometimes you'll see I have safety pants on, sometimes you'll see I don't, sometimes you'll see I have a helmet on, sometimes I don't. It's always wise to wear those things, but the technique and the chain consciousness, meaning paying attention to where that's at all the time and understanding the tension and compression of trees, all of which I am learning because, guys, I grew up with a chainsaw. Chainsaw's always been another tool in the shed. It was a frustrating tool, quite frankly, because I didn't understand it that well. I didn't know how to keep my chain sharp. I do now. In the field, I switch hands when I file. The shop, I tend to use my right hand, I'm more comfortable with. So don't say that. There are more than one reason for a chain or a saw to bog down, some of which I get a little hungry with the rakers, some of which I have a knockoff power head. But I know now how to keep the saw in tune and how to sharpen the saw. I didn't know when I was young, and I didn't know what I didn't know when I was younger. I mean, I learned from my dad and my uncle, and they didn't have the internet, and they didn't have formal training, but they cut down trees and when in doubt, gun it out and take off running and clean up the mess whenever the tree fell, wherever it fell. My granddad took out a transformer once when he, with his big home light chainsaw, was heavy as fuck. All of this rant is to say I am not formally trained, but thanks to YouTube, thanks to you guys, I can get a tree down safely, and I am learning as I go. Sometimes my notches line up, a lot of times they don't. I'm not claiming to be, excellent at aiming my trees or lining my notches up. It's, I even post stuff that they don't line up, but when they do, people always have something to say. Anyway, I could say a lot more, but enjoy. I hope that this helps some people like me who are trying to learn. There's a lot of different scenarios here and different tree species, different degrees of decay, and not a single one of these are straight. So I'm learning, and I hope you are too. And this shit is dangerous, but I need to do it. There's nobody else going to do it here if I don't do it. And it would be better done by somebody with a little training, even if it's not formal, via YouTube. So enjoy, roll that beautiful beam footage.
All right, guys, a couple of things here before we get started. And that's, before you get started, go ahead and make sure all your saws, and you want more than one, are fueled up and oiled up, and your chains are sharp and squared away. Just checking that here. And then make sure you know how to choke your saw. Once it pops once, you'll normally have no issues the rest of the day, but make sure it's in tune. I haven't run it for a while, and you can see here once I get it running, put it on the tailgate, I let it idle, and there's a little chain creep, and that means I need to adjust the load jet. These are things you want to learn. These are things that I have learned in the last couple of years, and it just makes the actual cutting that much easier. All right, the first snag we're going to take a look at is this dead locust here. I just put a conventional notch in it. I have a buddy here with me, helping me out. He's learning how to use the chainsaw. I didn't realize this was rolling, but I'm going to let it go because I explained a lot of the basics here.
Come here, I'll show you. This is called a conventional notch, and that's when you put a flat cut on the bottom. This is called your undercut or your face cut. Obviously, you're cutting a notch in the direction you want to follow it. This sight right here is your gunning sight. So obviously the tree, according to the way that it's leaned, is going to fall right to the left of that. So if I had cut it over here, that means the tree's going that way. Yeah. If I cut it that way, it should fall right to the left of that, which would just miss that cherry tree. And then a conventional knot, you come from the top and cut down. General rule is about 1/3 of the way through the tree. That way you leave room for wedges back here if you need them. There are times in which you do less, there are times in which you do more. What you don't want is what's called a Dutchman, which is, I have a little bit right here. You see how this goes past just a little bit? That's probably inconsequential, but you don't want a lot of that. And if I had a lot over here, right, like if this went way past, the way to correct that is to come up here and take another slice and meet it. But now I just changed the way of the tree a lot. Like if that's a tall tree and I move this a couple of inches, now that's going to end up way over there. So you have to kind of try to get that, line your cuts up.
You leave a good bit of meat there and then it starts going and you kick it.
Yeah, and when you leave a Dutchman, it can do all kinds of weird stuff where it'll set down here and then twist and fall off the stump. So that's your undercut. I always teach conventional first because it's the easiest way to line your cut up. The saw is weighted that way already. You know, the other way, which we'll do later, is called a. They do it out west, and it's called a Humboldt. And they come from down here, and there are benefits to that, and that your tree will fall off the stump quicker. But it's harder to do that because you have to hold the saw like this to line up your cut. I was taught this way. I'm better at it that way. So when it's a dangerous tree, that's tends to be what I do. When you're doing a snag like this, they want you at waist height so you're comfortable. Obviously, if you're cutting timber, you want to cut this as low as you can. You want all the board feet you can get. But it's much more dangerous because you're down here. Whereas here, I'm up. I can see I'm not on my knees. That's pretty good. That's about 1/3. That's what we want. It's going in the right direction. Now I'm going to make my back cut, and your back cut should be about 1 inch higher than your undercut, and that leaves what's called a kickback plate. If everything goes well, I'll show you. And you should leave, depending on how big your tree is, the hinge, which is the part that's going to guide the tree all the way over. You never want to cut all the way through, because when the tree sits down on the saw, there's nothing to guide the tree over, and it can just tip and spin and do anything it wants. So I'm going to start. I'm still not great at lining up my cut, so I just trace the line. Like I'll trace this all the way around, make sure that I'm about 1 inch on each side, and then I'll start a deeper cut. Because if you just trace your line and I'm over there where I want to be, but I come over here and I'm way high or way low, well, I can trace it again and get it right. But if you just power your saw in there and start going, and then you're way low over here, oftentimes the tree doesn't want to go over. All right.
And you're going to leave about a good inch of meat.
Yeah, probably less here because there's no weight in the tree. Sometimes, I'll show you on that stump down there, it didn't want to go over even though it had a heavy lean. You have to do a more dangerous technique where you plunge the heart out of the hinge and you just leave 2 poles of hinge on either side. And that's all it's guiding at, is a little thin strip on either side. But Sometimes that's what's necessary. All right, so this is a good example here. I was good on this side. You want to be either flush or an inch above. Guys out west try to stay flush. I always try to stay an inch above, so I'm a little bit low here, but I'm probably an inch low there, which you can get away with, but that's not ideal. This is pretty good though. This is called your hinge. You can see I had about an inch of hinge all the way across, maybe a little bit more over here. That's not a bad stump.
All right, this next one is also a locust, larger with a live top in it, and I have a pretty tight shot. I'm gonna cut a conventional notch because I'm most comfortable with those. The best thing I can say is just let your saw do the work. If you try to force it through the cut, it tends to bog down. And then once you get the wedge out, you can go ahead and clean up your notch. And take as much time as you need here. If it takes you 2 minutes to clean it up, take 2 minutes to clean the cut up. Here it goes here. I actually forgot to hit play on the camera, but buddy Zach got it going over. Alright, I'm not going to show this every time, but it's important to take the time and brush out around the trees before you start cutting. Different species here. This is a dead ash, lots of those. Still going with the conventional notch. So the thing with these dead ash trees or snags in general is they don't have much weight in the top to pull them over, and they're very brittle, so you don't have much directional control. So I use a lever here to push it over because I don't want to be beating on it.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like. Just a little bit of a kickback plate, nice and level, nice holding wood all the way across. And if you cut through that too much, it'll sit down on your saw, and then you're trying to pull your saw out and that's spinning up there. That's a good looking stump, and the stem is in the wood, so we don't have to clean it up.
I got another one here. The emerald ash borers killed all these, so they got to go. We do the Humboldt here for the first time. You can see here I'm about to miss short. If you're going to miss, it's better to miss short than long because you can clean that up and it doesn't change your direction.
When this tree started to fall, it would sit down on this and it could start to tip that way. Yeah, so I want to get rid of that. And that's why I tried it here, because I have the leisure to be sloppy. But in order to clean that up, I need to come in here and take a little bit of a slice out of that side. Not too bad. Good enough for me.
I go around the tree a couple of times to check to make sure that I'm not cut up too much on that side. Go around as many times as you need to make sure you're comfortable with where you're at.
Too bad. Full of insects, ants. There's the queen.
This one here actually breaks down in the root ball a little early, but it's down safely, and we're on to the next one. This is still black cherry, but it has some good holding wood in it. So I get it cut up, making sure my saw's not pinched. And rather than beat on this with wedges, I don't want the top to break off and hit me. I decided to just push this one over.
You can see there where I was reaching in from the back to try to tickle that heartwood. Still didn't want to go.
So it's not a great idea to wedge snags, but a lot of the times you have to because there's no weight in the top. And that's why you want to fall in the direction of the leaves. And it's down safely, even though it fought.
Show you the stump. We were cut up. Just that cherry, when there's no weight in the limbs, holds on.
And this is why you don't go too deep on your back cut and walk around, take a peek, adjust, come in slightly above, and let the tree walk away. This is another black cherry, but it has a top in it. I'm starting to like the Humboldt, getting more comfortable with it. Take my time, get it clean, come in at the back, about an inch and a half higher.
It's really moving on you.
This one had a pretty hard back lean, so it took some wedging.
Come on, buddy.
I was about to double them up, but it started to walk away.
Could have probably cut it up a hair more, but given that back lean, I was worried.
It's a big old cherry with a heavy lean. I'm gonna give it a conventional cut and then a bore cut, or what I often call a plunge cut, and then I'll trigger it from the back. So this is the bore cut. The idea is that if you bore into the center of the tree and work your hinge up, you can walk out the back or trigger it from the back without causing the tree to barber chair or blow apart on you because you're trying to chase all the tension wood into the kerf. And this is exactly why you back up at a 45. You see that Widowmaker came down and almost clipped me.
I had a helmet on. I don't get the plunge cut very often because I don't get hard leaners like that all the time. There's the trigger. I left a fairly big hinge because it was leaning hard and I didn't want to get pinched. Now I got a mess to clean up.
See, right here I bogged the saw down. It's not because it's not sharp, it's because I'm twisting it to the right or left. And the one thing they don't tell you is that you guys can see both sides of the cut, but I can't. I can't see the far side of the tree, so you really have to learn what it feels like and what it looks like from your side of the tree to line your cuts up. And here again, I'm going around to make sure that I'm relatively level, either even or slightly above my undercut. You do that as many times as you need to. You see here, it's starting to go, but I have to stay with it on the stump. And that just makes it more dangerous. So this next one is actually 3 trees grown together. There's 2 hackberry here, and there's a big gnarly locust in the middle with fence in it. So I have to cut a high notch here, which is awkward as hell. And I just tickle this from the back, and as soon as it starts to go, I get the hell out of there. So right now I'm just praying I don't hit metal, and I actually do get this one on the ground without hitting any of the fence or nails. But when I'm shaving this gnarly locust, I did hit a nail. So I had to get the big saw out. So black locust is a really hard wood, and the bark on these old gnarly trees will knock the points right off your teeth. So it's worth going ahead and shaving them. So you'll see here I'm starting to get the hang of feeding these Humboldts. I'm not twisting my wrists at all. I'm allowing the saw to pull itself through the cut. I'm in no rush, and I just go until the kerf starts to fall out. And then you clean up your cut. Take as much time as you need to. Simple as. This turned into a bit of a nightmare in the back. I should have bore cut it, but I broke my chain tensioner in the other saw. So I had to get my dad's saw out, which I'm not that comfortable with, and it started to go before I was ready. But all wells that ends well. And it's down, and now I just gotta clean it up. A few more, and we'll call it quits. I get it to where it's just sitting there, and then I go take down this cherry to the right of the screen here. And as I understand it, that's the way it should be done when they're limb locked.
There's the stump. T-bag. Conventional cut with the trigger. Bore in. Dog tooth on the back.
All right, another day. I'm in the woods by myself here. I'm on a very steep hillside here, and I got a number of gnarly ash snags to get rid of. And again, I'm not going to show you all this, but you want to brush out. So I get the face all cleaned up, and then I decide to bore in and just walk around the tree. But you'll see before I get all the way around, it pulls a plug out of the root ball, and I just get the hell out of there. It's not necessary, but it helps if you make the flat cut first, because you can change the aim a lot easier. If you make that angled cut first, which I do sometimes, your aim is set, but that bottom cut, you can still change the aim on. So I suggest make that flat cut first, but a lot of guys do the angle cut first, and that's perfectly fine. I do it sometimes myself. Saw's not big enough, I just go around to the other side, finish my cut. Again, take as much time as you need here to clean this up. This is just a short, stubby snag, but you want to treat it the same way you would treat any tree. On big trees like this, I still score my line all the way around. No shame in that. You do what you need to do to keep that cut level and even on both sides so that you chase your hinge up evenly. I'm going to cut up the far side, the low side, and then I'm going to walk around to what I'll call the high side here, but the tree is leaning to the low side, so I want to finish on the high side. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if my terminology is correct, but that's how I understand high and low. So I get it cut up, pop a wedge in it, go over, make sure I'm cut up from the low side, and then I'm gonna have to wedge this one over. A lot of times they won't walk away if they're straight up and down, and this one is, so.
If it had a top in it, it would fall over. I'm trying to force it that way.
I'm looking up often here. When you start beating on a snag like that, you want to hit, look up, hit, look up, and then get the hell out of there when it falls. These little short stubby snags are a great place to practice your undercuts.
So you can see there, even with the short bar, it's 18 inches. Tree is, probably 20 some inches. You can see I started my back cut over there. I swept around, my bar stopped there. I came back in on this low side and I made sure I had all that wood cut up and stopped when I had 1.5 inches of hinge. Banged it over.
When you got a tight shot, it's well worth taking your time to make sure that it's on the nuts, because you can't miss or else you got hang-ups, and hang-ups suck. Again, I got to dump a small sapling in order to get a couple of ash snags out of here. You got to do what you got to do.
I don't know, this is awful. There's not a lot left. I got a hole for it.
You can sense I'm a little nervous here, so I just keep easing into it and seeing what it does up top. Small saw, big tree, so I have to double cut here. No big deal. I can walk around to the other side and finish off my notch.
Now this gnarly thing. Can you guys see? It's cracked right there. And punky and pithy at the base. I almost don't even want to stick a saw in that thing, but I don't want it hanging over me. That's a rush. That one worried me. Fall down, go boom. Big old stump. The small saw. Still managed to chase cut a pretty even hinge there. Brittle shit, this ash. You just don't have much directional control when they're in that state of decay. There's 2 more deadly snags taken care of. Bada bing, bada boom.